The massive crystal chamber on Zentari Prime glowed with soft blue light. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy sat in floating seats that adjusted to each species' needs. Some had tentacles, others had multiple eyes, and a few looked almost like walking rocks. This was the Grand Council, where the most important decisions in the galaxy were made. Elder Vorthak stepped forward on his 6 thin legs. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbows across the chamber walls. He was old, even by his people's standards. He had lived for over 2,000 years and had seen many species rise and fall. Today, he carried ancient stone tablets that few had ever seen. "My fellow beings," Vorthak said, his voice echoing through the chamber like wind chimes. "I bring you a reminder of the oldest law in our galaxy, a law written 3,000 years ago by those who came before us." The chamber fell silent. Even the most talkative species stopped their whispered conversations. Ancient laws were serious business in the galaxy. They were usually written in blood and hard experience. Vorthak held up the first tablet. The writing on it glowed with its own inner light. "The law is simple," he said. "Never mess with the humans. They sleep now, but when they wake, the galaxy trembles." Many council members shifted uncomfortably. Some had never heard of humans. Others knew them only as the quiet species that lived in a small corner of the galaxy. They seemed harmless enough. They traded peacefully, explored carefully, and never bothered anyone. "Elder Vorthak," said Ambassador Zeltron, a large purple being with 4 arms. "Surely this is old superstition. These humans you speak of are weak. They have only a few worlds. Their ships are slow and their weapons are simple. My children's toys are more dangerous." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Many agreed with Zeltron. They had met humans before. They seemed nice enough, but not particularly impressive. They were always polite, always willing to help, and never caused trouble. Vorthak's crystal body darkened. That is exactly what the Void Hunters thought 3,000 years ago. They were the strongest military force the galaxy had ever seen. They conquered entire star systems in days. Their weapons could crack planets. The laughter stopped. Everyone knew the story of the Void Hunters. They had vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only empty ships floating in space. No one knew what had happened to them. "The Void Hunters found a small human colony," Vorthak continued. "Just a few thousand people growing food on a quiet world. The hunters decided to have some fun. They killed half the humans and took the rest as slaves." Vorthak held up a second tablet. This one showed images that moved like a hologram. 3 days later, the entire Void Hunter fleet was found drifting in space. Every ship was intact, but every hunter was dead. No signs of battle, damage, no evidence of weapons fire. The humans had simply removed them. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the air recycling system seemed quieter. "The surviving humans left a message," Vorthak said. "They said they wanted to be left alone. They said they would sleep again. But if anyone hurt their people, they would wake up. And when humans wake up, they do not go back to sleep until the threat is gone." Far away from the Grand Council, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair aboard the USS Liberty. He was a typical human in his 30s, with brown hair and kind eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with captain's stripes on his sleeves. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. "Captain," said Lisa Park, his chief engineer. She was a small woman with black hair pulled back in a ponytail. "We're getting a message from Earth Command." Jake nodded. "Put it on screen." "Admiral," Susan Grant appeared on the main viewer. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. "Captain Morrison, you have a new mission. We've made contact with a species called the Zephyrians. They want to discuss trade agreements." "That sounds routine," Jake said. "What's the catch?" "No catch," the Admiral said. "They seem friendly enough. Their prince sent a formal invitation. You'll meet at neutral coordinates in the Kepler system. Standard first contact protocols." Jake's security officer, Ryan Blake, looked up from his station. He was a big man with broad shoulders who used to be a Marine. "Any intelligence on these Zephyrians, sir?" "They're new to us," Admiral Grant said. "But they seem peaceful. They've been watching our trade routes for months without interfering. That's usually a good sign." Dr. Kate Williams, the ship's medical officer, smiled from her station near the back of the bridge. She was a cheerful woman who always looked for the best in people. "It'll be nice to make new friends." Jake nodded. "Understood, Admiral. We'll head to the Kepler system immediately." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Prince Zerthon of the Zephyrian Empire studied reports about humans. He was tall and thin with gray skin and yellow eyes. His people looked somewhat like humans, but they were taller and stronger. They also believed they were much smarter. "These humans are pathetic," Prince Zerthon said to his military advisor, General Kyloth. "Look at their ships, slow and clumsy. Look at their weapons, basic energy beams that my grandmother could dodge." General Kyloth was even taller than the prince, with scars across his face from many battles. "They do seem weak, Your Highness, but they control 17 star systems. That's not nothing." 17 systems they probably stumbled into by accident, the prince laughed. "I've decided to make an example of them. The galaxy needs to see that the Zephyrian Empire is not to be trifled with." "An example, sir?" "We'll capture their diplomatic ship," Prince Zerthon said. "Show everyone that humans are just another weak species to be conquered. Once we defeat them easily, other species will fear us and respect our power." General Kyloth felt a small worry in his stomach, but he pushed it away. His prince was probably right. Humans did seem weak, and the Zephyrian military was the strongest it had ever been. Back on Zentari Prime, Elder Vorthak finished his speech to the Grand Council. Many members were still laughing and joking about the old stories. They didn't believe that peaceful humans could be dangerous. As the council session ended, Vorthak placed the ancient tablets back in their protective case. He hoped he would never need to bring them out again. But deep in his crystal heart, he had a bad feeling. Someone, somewhere, was about to make a terrible mistake. The galaxy was about to learn why the oldest rule existed, and Elder Vorthak knew that when the lesson was over, nothing would ever be the same again. The USS Liberty dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler system. Captain Jake Morrison looked at the main screen and saw exactly what he expected: a large space station floating peacefully among the stars. It looked clean and new, with bright lights and welcoming docking bays. "Looks normal," said Ryan Blake from his security station, but something felt wrong to him. After 10 years as a Marine, he had learned to trust his gut feelings. Lisa Park checked her engineering displays. "I'm reading some unusual energy patterns from that station, Captain. Nothing dangerous, just different." "Different how?" Jake asked. "The power signature doesn't match what they told us about their technology," Lisa said. "It's like they're running equipment they shouldn't have." Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her medical station. "Maybe they borrowed some technology from other species? That's pretty common for new spacefaring civilizations." Jake nodded. That made sense. Many species shared technology when they first joined the galactic community. Open a channel to the station. Channel open, sir, said the communications. Officer, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Liberty. We're here for the scheduled diplomatic meeting with Prince Zerthan. The screen flickered, and a tall, gray-skinned figure appeared. He wore elaborate robes covered in gold thread. This was Prince Zerthan, though he looked more serious than his diplomatic photos suggested. Welcome, Captain Morrison, the prince said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I am honored to meet representatives of humanity. Please dock at Bay 7. We have prepared a special reception for you. Something about the way he said special made Ryan Blake frown. Captain, I recommend we keep our shields up during docking procedures. That seems a bit paranoid, Kate said. They're being very polite. Jake thought about it for a moment. Better safe than sorry. Raise shields, but keep weapons powered down. We don't want to seem hostile. The USS Liberty slowly approached the Yase docking bay. Everything seemed normal until they were halfway there. That's when Lisa Park's instruments started screaming warnings. Captain, she shouted, I'm detecting massive energy buildups all around us. Something's not right. Before Jake could respond, the space around them filled with ships. Dozens of Zephyrian warships decloaked, surrounding the Liberty completely. These weren't the peaceful exploration vessels from the intelligence reports. These were heavy cruisers and battleships, all pointing their weapons at the human ship. Red alert! Jake called out. All hands to battle stations! The lights on the bridge changed to red, and alarm sounds echoed through the ship. Ryan Blake's hands flew over his weapons controls, but he already knew it was hopeless. They were outnumbered 50-1. Prince Zerthan appeared on screen again, but now he wasn't pretending to be friendly. Captain Morrison, you and your crew are now prisoners of the Zephyrian Empire. Surrender immediately, or we will destroy your ship. Like hell, Ryan muttered, charging the ship's weapons. Ryan, stand down, Jake said quietly. He looked around, his bridge at his crew. These people trusted him to keep them alive. Starting a fight they couldn't win wasn't the way to do that. We're outgunned and outnumbered. Sir, I can get us out of here, Lisa said from engineering. The jump drive is still online. Before Jake could answer, energy beams struck the Liberty from multiple directions. The ship shook violently, and several control panels exploded in showers of sparks. The lights flickered and went out for a moment before emergency power kicked in. Jump drive is offline, Lisa reported, coughing through the smoke. They hit us with some kind of disabling weapon. Main engines are dead, too. Jake felt anger building in his chest, but he pushed it down. Getting angry wouldn't help his crew. Prince Zerthan, this is an act of war against the United Earth Federation. The prince laughed. War? Your entire species couldn't fight one of my battle groups. You humans are weak and pathetic. Today, you're going to serve as an example to the rest of the galaxy. An example of what? Kate asked. That the Zephyrian Empire is the new power in this part of the galaxy, Zerthan said. When other species see how easily we conquered the famous humans, they'll surrender without a fight. More energy beams hit the Liberty. This time, they were carefully aimed. They knocked out the ship's communications, weapons, and life support systems one by one. The Zephyrians were taking their time, making sure the human ship was completely helpless. Transport ships are approaching, Ryan reported. Looks like they want to board us. Jake made a decision that would haunt him for weeks. All crew members, this is the captain. Offer no resistance to boarding parties. I repeat, Do not resist. We'll find another way out of this. Within minutes, Zephyrian soldiers were swarming through the ship. They were tall and strong, wearing advanced armor and carrying energy weapons. The humans were quickly rounded up and forced into the ship's cargo bay. Lisa Park worked frantically at a maintenance panel while the soldiers weren't looking. She had an idea, but it was risky. If the Zephyrians caught her, they might kill her entire crew. "What are you doing?" Kate whispered. "Sending a message," Lisa whispered back. "I'm modifying a maintenance beacon to look like normal ship debris. If I can get it to transmit our location and what happened, maybe someone will come looking for us. And if they catch you?" Lisa looked at her friend and smiled grimly. "Then we're no worse off than we already are." She finished her work just as a Zephyrian soldier noticed her. "You! Get away from there!" Lisa held up her hands and stepped back. Behind her, invisible to everyone else, a small piece of metal that looked like broken ship parts drifted away into space. Inside that piece of metal was a message that would change everything. The message contained 3 things: the location, where they were captured, the identity of their captors, and a single code word that would tell Earth Command this wasn't just a pirate attack or accident. This was an act of war. Prince Zerthan appeared in the cargo bay, looking very pleased with himself. "Humans of the USS Liberty, you are now prisoners of the Zephyrian Empire. You will be taken to our most secure facility, where you will remain until your government agrees to our terms." "What terms?" Jake demanded. "Complete surrender, of course," the prince said. "Your species will become servants of the Zephyrian Empire. Don't worry, we'll let you keep your little worlds. You can grow food for us and mine metals for our ships." Dr. Kate Williams stood up, anger flashing in her eyes. "You can't enslave an entire species. The Galactic Council won't allow it." "Prince," Zerthan laughed again. "The Galactic Council is full of weak old beings who spend their time talking instead of acting. By the time they decide what to do, it will be too late." The human prisoners were loaded onto transport ships and taken to a prison moon called Torvin III. As they traveled through space, Jake looked out a small window and saw something that made his heart sink. Hundreds of Zephyrian warships were gathering in formation. This wasn't just about capturing one human ship. The prince was preparing for a full-scale war. But far away in space, Lisa Park's modified beacon drifted silently among the debris of the battle. It looked like nothing important, just another piece of space junk. The Zephyrians never noticed it. The beacon waited patiently for a human ship to pass by and receive its message. When that happened, the Zephyrian Empire would learn that capturing humans was the biggest mistake they had ever made. Admiral Susan Grant was drinking her morning coffee when the emergency alert came through. It was 0600 hours at Earth Command, and most of the staff hadn't even arrived yet. But the message that appeared on her personal communicator made her blood run cold. The message was short: Liberty captured, act of war, Kepler system, emergency protocol 7. Protocol 7 was something they had hoped never to use. It meant that human civilians were being held hostage by a hostile alien force. Admiral Grant immediately called an emergency meeting of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the President. President William Carter arrived at the meeting room within 20 minutes, still wearing his pajamas under a hastily thrown-on jacket. He was a calm man who rarely showed emotion, but his face was dark with anger when he read the message. "How certain are we that this is legitimate?" he asked. 100%, Admiral Grant replied. The message came from Chief Engineer Lisa Parks, personal emergency beacon. She's the only one who knows the encryption codes. General Robert Hayes, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, leaned forward. "Sir, if the Zephyrians have taken our people hostage, we need to respond immediately. What do we know about their military capabilities?" President Carter asked. Dr. Alex Chen, the head of the Strategic Defense Initiative, opened a thick folder. He was a quiet man who usually stayed in the background, but today he had everyone's attention. "Sir, it's time to tell you something that very few people know," Dr. Chen said. "For the past 50 years, humanity has been deliberately hiding our true military capabilities." President Carter frowned. "What do you mean?" "We've been playing weak," Admiral Grant explained. "Every ship we've shown to other species, every weapon they've seen, every technology we've shared, it's all been carefully chosen to make us look harmless." Dr. Chen activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy with human territories marked in blue, but instead of the 17 small systems that everyone thought humans controlled, the display showed over 200 star systems. "We have been building in secret for decades," Dr. Chen continued. "Hidden shipyards, concealed research facilities, disguised military bases. The galaxy thinks we have a few hundred ships. The reality is that we have over 10,000. President Carter stared at the display. "Why the deception?" "Because we learned from history," Admiral Grant said. "Every time a new military power appears in the galaxy, it starts a war. We wanted to be left alone to grow and develop, so we made everyone think we were weak. And it worked," General Hayes added. "Until now." President Carter stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth Command's main base. Below, he could see what looked like a normal military facility. But now he was learning that it was just the tip of a massive iceberg. "What are our capabilities?" he asked. Dr. Chen smiled for the first time that morning. "Sir, we can field a fleet that would make the ancient Galactic Empire jealous. Our ships are faster, better armed, and more advanced than anything currently flying. We've been studying every military conflict in galactic history and learning from it. Across human space, coded signals went out to facilities that had been waiting decades for activation. Commander Nathan Cross received his orders while sitting in what appeared to be a simple asteroid mining station. He pressed a sequence of buttons, and the asteroid opened like a flower to reveal a massive military shipyard inside. Captain Ben Hughes was conducting a routine survey of empty space when his orders came through. His ship, the Shadow Walker, looked like a basic science vessel to any external scan. But when he activated its true systems, it became invisible to all known detection methods. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster was running an agricultural research station on a planet that most species thought was uninhabited. When her activation, codes came through. The farmland rolled back to reveal underground hangars filled with the most advanced fighter craft in the galaxy. Within 6 hours of receiving Lisa Park's message, over 3,000 hidden facilities across human space came online. Mining operations revealed themselves as weapons platforms. Research stations transformed into military command centers. Peaceful colonies activated defensive systems that could stop entire fleets. But the most important activation happened in a secret facility buried deep beneath Earth's moon. Major Chris Bennett, a Marine who was supposed to be on leave, walked into a room that contained humanity's greatest secret. The room held complete intelligence files on every species in the galaxy. For 50 years, human agents had been gathering information while pretending to be simple traders and explorers. They knew the strengths and weaknesses of every alien military force. They had battle plans for scenarios that hadn't even happened yet. "Sir," Major Bennett said into his communicator, Project Deep Watch is fully operational. We have complete intelligence on Zephyrian military capabilities, and I have to say, they're not as impressive as they think they are. Back at Earth Command, President Carter made his decision. Activate the reserve fleets. I want our people back. And I want the galaxy to understand that taking human hostages was the biggest mistake the Zephyrians have ever made. Admiral Grant nodded. What about maintaining our cover? Once we reveal our true capabilities, we can never go back to being the harmless humans. They made that choice for us when they attacked our ship, President Carter said. The galaxy is about to learn who we really are. Dr. Chen began issuing orders to facilities across human space. Ships that had been hidden for decades emerged from concealed bases. Weapons that existed only in theory were loaded onto vessels that officially didn't exist. Captain Sam Torres received his orders while commanding what everyone thought was a cargo hauler. When he entered his real authorization codes, the ship's exterior panels folded away to reveal the USS Retribution, the most powerful dreadnought ever constructed. Admiral Linda Hayes, who was supposed to be retired, took command of the 8th Fleet, which had been hiding in a nebula for 10 years. Her ships were so advanced that they could take on entire enemy fleets single-handedly. Commander Tony Walsh activated sleeper agents throughout Zephyrian space. These humans had been living normal lives as traders, diplomats, and even refugees. Now they began gathering real-time intelligence on enemy movements and defenses. The transformation was happening so fast that even veteran military officers were stunned. General Hayes watched the tactical displays as humanity's true strength revealed itself. "Sir," he said to President Carter, "I've been in the military for 30 years, and I had no idea we had this kind of power." "That was the point," Admiral Grant replied. "The best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know you have." Within 12 hours, humanity had mobilized the largest military force in current galactic history. But they weren't rushing into battle. Every move was carefully planned and coordinated. "Sir," Dr. Chen reported, "we've located the prison facility where our people are being held. It's on Torvin 3, a heavily fortified moon in Zephyrian space." "What's our plan?" President Carter asked. Admiral Grant smiled grimly. "We're going to give the galaxy a demonstration. They're about to learn why there was an ancient law about not messing with humans. And when we're done, that law is going to be carved in stone for the next 3,000 years. The die was cast. Humanity was going to war, and they were bringing weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. The prison moon of Torvin III was supposed to be escape-proof. It had energy shields that could stop a battleship, guard towers with automated weapons, and over 2,000 Zephyrian soldiers. The warden, Colonel Thex, bragged that no prisoner had ever escaped in the facility's 50-year history. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his cell, studying the prison's layout. For 3 days, he had been watching guard patrols, counting weapon positions, and memorizing shift changes. His crew was scattered throughout the facility, but he could see some of them during exercise periods. "Jake," whispered Lisa Park from the next cell. "I've been working on something." Jake moved closer to the wall between their cells. The Zephyrians monitored their conversations, but they had learned to speak in code. "Remember that recipe your grandmother taught you?" Lisa said. "The one with the special ingredients from the medical cabinet?" Jake understood immediately. Lisa was talking about making explosives from medical supplies. "That's a dangerous recipe. Are you sure you remember it correctly?" "I've been practicing in my head," Lisa replied. "Dr. Williams has been helping me remember the exact measurements." In the prison medical bay, Kate Williams was being forced to treat injured prisoners from dozens of different species. The Zephyrians had been capturing ships throughout this part of the galaxy, not just human vessels. She had tended to crystal, beings with cracked shells, plant creatures with wilted leaves, and gaseous entities whose containment suits had been damaged. What the guards didn't know was that Kate had been collecting certain medical supplies. Individually, they were harmless. Together, they could make a very effective explosive. She had learned this trick during her residency at a military hospital. Ryan Blake was in the high-security section with the most dangerous prisoners. He had spent his time making friends with a massive creature called Gorth, who had 8 arms and the temperament of an angry bear. Gorth had been captured when his ship tried to help another vessel under Zephyrian attack. "Human Ryan," Gorth rumbled in his deep voice. "When do we fight?" "Soon," Ryan promised. "When my captain gives the signal." But the signal Jake was waiting for wasn't coming from inside the prison. High above Torvin the Thrur, space began to shimmer. The Zephyrian sensors didn't detect anything unusual, but that was because they were looking for the wrong things. Admiral Susan Grant's task force had arrived, but they weren't using normal space travel. Human stealth technology was 50 years ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. The ships simply stepped out of normal space and back in, bypassing all known detection methods. Captain Sam Torres looked at the tactical display aboard the USS Retribution. The massive dreadnought was invisible to enemy sensors, floating just outside the moon's orbital defense grid. "Admiral," he reported to Admiral Grant, "we have visual confirmation of the prison facility. It's heavily defended, but nothing we can't handle." "Good," Admiral Grant replied from her flagship. "Begin Operation Broken Chain. I want our people back, and I want the galaxy to see what happens when you mess with humans." The first phase of the attack was almost surgical. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster's stealth fighters slipped through the defense grid like ghosts. Their job was to disable the prison's communications before anyone could call for help. The Zephyrian communication array simply stopped working. To the guards, it looked like a routine maintenance failure. They had no idea that human infiltrators had just cut them off from the rest of their empire. Major Chris Bennett's Marine teams were already on the surface of Torvin 3. They had been inserted during the night cycle using drop pods that looked like meteorites to enemy sensors. Now they were moving into position around the prison facility. Inside the prison, Jake Morrison felt vibrations through the floor. They were subtle, but his military training told him that something big was happening outside. He gave Kate Williams a small hand signal during the evening meal distribution. Kate nodded and began her part of the plan. She had hidden the explosive components in different parts of her medical bag. Working quickly while the guards weren't looking, she mixed them into a paste that looked like medical ointment. Lisa Park received the explosive compound during her next medical treatment. She immediately began applying it to the lock mechanisms of several cell doors. The compound would eat through Zephyrian metal in about 10 minutes. Ryan Blake was ready. He had spent 3 days loosening bolts in his cell wall using a spoon he had stolen from the dining area. When Lisa's explosive compound weakened the locks, he would be able to break through and reach the armory. Outside the prison, the real battle was beginning. Captain Elena Rodriguez led the first wave of human ships against the orbital defense platforms. The Zephyrians had never seen weapons like the ones humanity brought to this fight. The human energy cannons didn't just destroy enemy weapons, they made them disappear completely. The defensive shields that were supposed to stop any attack simply vanished when human particle beams touched them. Colonel Thex, the prison warden, watched his orbital defenses get destroyed in less than 5 minutes. He couldn't understand what he was seeing. The human ships moved faster than anything he had ever witnessed, and their weapons seemed to ignore the laws of physics. "Send a distress signal," he ordered. "Sir, communications are down," his aide reported. "We can't reach Fleet Command." Inside the prison, the explosive compound had done its work. Cell doors throughout the facility began opening as their locks dissolved. Jake Morrison stepped out of his cell and immediately began organizing the escape. "All prisoners, this is Captain Morrison of the human fleet," he called out. "We're breaking out of here right now. Follow my crew to the exits." Ryan. Blake had reached the armory and was distributing weapons to the escaped prisoners. But he was amazed by what he found there. The Zephyrians had confiscated weapons from dozens of species, and some of them were incredibly advanced. Gorth, the 8-armed warrior, grabbed a plasma cannon in each arm. "Now we fight properly," he roared. Lisa Park was working on the prison's main computer system. If she could open all the cell doors at once, they could free every prisoner in the facility. Her fingers flew over the alien controls as explosions echoed from outside. The human assault was relentless. Major Tony Walsh's bombardment ships were targeting specific parts of the prison's structure, carefully avoiding the areas where prisoners were held. Every shot was precise, designed to disable defenses without harming captives. Kate Williams was helping injured prisoners move toward the exits when she saw something amazing through a window. Human ships were landing in the prison courtyard, and soldiers in advanced armor were pouring out. But these weren't just any soldiers. These were human Marines using technology that seemed impossible. Their armor made them stronger and faster than any known species. Their weapons could punch through solid stone walls, and they moved with a coordination that made them seem like a single organism. Colonel Thex tried to organize a defense, but his soldiers were panicking. They had never faced an enemy like this. The human Marines didn't just fight. They controlled the battlefield completely. Ryan Blake led a group of freed prisoners toward the main exit, but they ran into a squad of Zephyrian guards. The guards raised their weapons, confident that they could handle a few escaped prisoners. They were wrong. Ryan Blake had been a human Marine for 10 years before becoming a starship security officer. The Zephyrian weapons couldn't even track him as he moved. Within seconds, the guards were unconscious, and the prisoners were free. Jake Morrison reached the prison courtyard just as Admiral Grant's Marines secured the area. He had never been so happy to see human soldiers in his life. "Captain Morrison," said the Marine commander, removing his helmet to reveal a familiar face. "Colonel Marcus Stone, Earth Marine Corps. We're here to take you home." Jake looked around at the destruction. The Zephyrian prison facility was in ruins, but every prisoner had been freed safely. "How many ships did you bring?" Colonel Stone smiled. "Sir, this wasn't even our main fleet. This was just the advance guard." As the rescue ships lifted off from Torvin III, Jake Morrison looked back at the burning prison facility. The Zephyrians had thought they could use humans as an example to terrorize the galaxy. Instead, they had just given humanity an excuse to show the galaxy what they were really capable of. And this was only the beginning. News of the rescue mission spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On 1,000 different worlds, beings watched recordings of the battle at Torvin III with growing amazement and fear. The peaceful humans had just destroyed a maximum security prison facility in less than an hour. Elder Vorthak was in his crystal garden when the news reached him. He had been tending to his light flowers, trying to forget about his worries from the council meeting. but when his aide showed him the battle footage, his crystal body went completely dark. "Contact Ambassador Stone immediately," he said. "We need to speak with the humans before this gets any worse." Dr. Patricia Stone was Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. She was a small woman with silver hair who had spent 20 years in diplomatic service. Most species thought she was a harmless old lady who liked to bake cookies for visiting dignitaries. They had no idea that she had a direct line to Earth's military command. When Elder Vorthak's call came through, Patricia was in her office reviewing reports from the rescue mission. She knew that the galaxy was about to change forever. "Elder Vorthak," she said politely. "How nice to hear from you." "Ambassador Stone," Vorthak said, his voice trembling like wind chimes in a storm. "We need to talk. The ancient warnings were true, weren't they?" Patricia set down her teacup and looked directly at the crystal being on her screen. "What warnings would those be?" "You know exactly what I mean," Vorthak said. "Your people just demonstrated military capabilities that shouldn't exist. How long have you been hiding your true strength?" Patricia smiled the same gentle smile she used when serving cookies. "We've never hidden anything, Elder Vorthak. We've simply been left alone to develop in peace. Until now." On the other side of the galaxy, Prince Zerthan was having the worst day of his life. His supposedly escape-proof prison had been destroyed by a human force that appeared out of nowhere. His orbital defenses had been swept away like dust, and now his military advisors were telling him that humanity had ships and weapons that violated everything they knew about technology. "This is impossible," he shouted at General Kyloth. "Humans are weak, their ships are slow, their weapons are primitive." General Kyloth had been studying the battle recordings for hours. He was beginning to understand that everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "I think we may have made a serious mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "The kind that gets entire civilizations destroyed," General Kyloth replied. "Look at these recordings. Human ships that can appear and disappear at will, weapons that can delete matter from existence, soldiers in armor that makes them stronger than our best warriors." Prince Zerthan watched the recordings again. He saw human marines moving faster than his sensors could track. He saw human ships performing maneuvers that should have torn them apart. He saw weapons that his scientists insisted were theoretically impossible. "How could we not know about this?" he demanded. "Because they didn't want us to know," General Kyloth said. "Sir, I think we need to consider surrendering before this gets worse." "Surrendering?" Prince Zerthan's voice went high with disbelief. "To humans? I am the leader of the Zephyrian Empire. I don't surrender to anyone." "Then what do you suggest?" "We do." Prince Zerthan's eyes blazed with fury. "We destroy them completely. Mobilize every ship in the Empire. I want 10,000 vessels ready for war within a week." Meanwhile, on Earth, President William Carter was addressing the Galactic Council via quantum communication. The message was being broadcast to every civilized world in the galaxy. "Fellow beings," President Carter said, standing behind a podium that looked simple, but was actually made of materials that could survive a nuclear explosion. "For decades, humanity has sought only peace and friendship with our galactic neighbors." He paused, looking directly into the camera. Behind him, the flags of Earth's nations hung alongside the banner of the United Earth Federation. Yesterday, the Zephyrian Empire attacked a human diplomatic vessel and took our people prisoner. This was an unprovoked act of war against a peaceful mission. We have rescued our people, but we cannot let this aggression go unanswered. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched as this seemingly harmless human leader continued his speech. 2. Prince Zerthan and the Zephyrian Empire, I offer this one chance. Surrender immediately and make full reparations for your crimes. Release all prisoners you have taken from other species. Submit to galactic justice for your war crimes. President Carter's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath it. If you refuse, you will face the full military might of humanity. And I assure you, you do not want to see what that looks like. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Then Prince Zerthan's response came. Broadcast on the same channels. Human President, the prince sneered. Your threats are meaningless. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this sector of space for 1,000 years. We bow to no one, especially not to a species of weak primitives. Prince Zerthan stood in his throne room, surrounded by the symbols of his empire's power. You rescued a few prisoners from one facility. You think this makes you strong? I am mobilizing 10,000 ships to crush your pathetic civilization. He leaned forward, his yellow eyes glowing with hatred. When I am finished with you, humans will serve as slaves throughout my empire. Your worlds will be stripped of resources. Your people will learn to kneel before Zephyrian might. The prince's declaration of war spread across the galaxy within hours. On most worlds, the reaction was shock and disbelief. Prince Zerthan was challenging a species that had just demonstrated incredible military power, but on Earth, the reaction was different. Dr. Alex Chen activated the final phase of humanity's military preparations. Hidden shipyards throughout human space began working at maximum capacity. Weapons that had been theoretical concepts became reality. Admiral Grant took command of humanity's war fleet from the bridge of the USS Vengeance, a ship so advanced that it existed in 3 dimensions simultaneously. Around her, the greatest military force in galactic history was assembling. Captain Jake Morrison had been given command of a new vessel, also called USS Vengeance. It was built using technology that even he didn't fully understand. When he sat in the captain's chair, the ship responded to his thoughts as much as his voice commands. Lisa Park was now chief engineer of the entire human fleet. She worked in a facility that could design and build starships in a matter of hours. The engineering principles she was using had been developed by studying the wreckage of ancient civilizations. Ryan Blake had been promoted to Admiral Blake, commanding the New Human Marine Corps fleet. His ships carried soldiers whose armor made them nearly invincible and whose training prepared them for warfare on a galactic scale. Dr. Kate Williams had been assigned to the medical corps, but her real job was studying alien physiology to develop non-lethal weapons. Humanity preferred to capture enemies alive when possible, but they were prepared for total war if necessary. As the human fleet assembled, other species began choosing sides. Some declared neutrality, hoping to avoid the coming storm. Others quietly began supporting humanity, sensing that the galaxy was about to change forever. Elder Vorthak made his own decision. He sent a secret message to Ambassador Stone. The crystal beings of Zentari Prime stand with humanity. We remember the ancient warnings, and we know that justice is on your side. Prince Zerthan's war fleet was impressive by any normal standard. 10,000 ships, armed with the best weapons the Zephyrian Empire could build. Each ship carried hundreds of soldiers trained for conquest and terror. But as they prepared to advance into human space, long-range sensors began detecting something impossible. The humans weren't hiding from the approaching fleet. They were advancing to meet it with ships that registered as moving faster than light while still in normal space. General Kyloth studied the sensor readings and felt ice form in his stomach. "Your Highness," he said quietly, "I think we may have awakened something that was better left sleeping." Prince Zerthan dismissed his advisor's concerns. He was about to learn that some mistakes cannot be undone, and some enemies should never be provoked. The galaxy was holding its breath, waiting to see what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. But those who remembered the ancient warnings knew the truth. Humanity was both the unstoppable force and the immovable object. The real war was about to begin. The Zephyrian armada advanced toward human space like a storm of metal and energy. 10,000 ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with weapons that could crack planets. Prince Zerthan rode in his flagship at the center of the fleet, confident that no force in the galaxy could stand against such overwhelming power. Admiral Vex, his fleet commander, pointed to the tactical display. "Your Highness, we should reach the first human colony within 6 hours. Intelligence reports suggest it's lightly defended." "Excellent," Prince Zerthan said. "We'll make an example of it. When the galaxy sees how easily we crush human worlds, other species will surrender immediately." But the intelligence reports were wrong. As the Zephyrian fleet approached the edge of human space, they encountered something that shouldn't have existed, a human fleet that was ready and waiting for them. Admiral Susan Grant stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the enemy approach on long-range sensors. Around her, the human fleet waited in perfect silence. These weren't the simple exploration vessels that the galaxy knew about. These were ships of war, built with technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "Admiral," reported Captain Elena Rodriguez from the USS Thunderbolt. "Enemy fleet bearing 27 Mark IV. Count is confirmed at 10,000 vessels." "Understood," Admiral Grant replied. "All ships, this is Admiral Grant. Today we defend not just humanity, but the principle that peaceful civilizations should be left alone. Show them why there was an ancient warning about messing with humans." The Battle of Proxima Station began when the two fleets came within weapons range. Prince Zerthan gave the order to attack, confident that his numerical advantage would carry the day. He was about to learn that in space warfare, quality mattered more than quantity. The first Zephyrian energy barrage was massive. Thousands of weapons fired simultaneously, creating a wall of destructive force that should have vaporized anything in its path. But when the energy beams reached the human ships, something impossible happened. The attacks simply disappeared. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the new USS Vengeance, watched from his bridge as enemy fire vanished into nothing. His ships, defensive systems weren't just stopping the attacks, they were erasing them from existence. "Lisa, what's our status?" he asked his chief engineer. "Quantum shields are holding at 100%, Lisa Park reported. "The enemy weapons can't even touch us. It's like they're firing into another dimension." The Zephyrian fleet commanders watched in disbelief as their devastating barrage had zero effect on the human ships. Admiral Vex checked his sensors 3 times before accepting what he was seeing. "Your Highness," he said in a shaking voice, "our weapons aren't working." "What do you mean they're not working?" Prince Zerthan demanded. "I mean the energy beams are hitting their ships and disappearing. It's like they have some kind of dimensional shield technology." Before Prince Zerthan could respond, the human fleet returned fire. But what came from the human ships wasn't anything. The Zephyrians recognized as weapons, Captain Tony Walsh fired the first shot from his ship, the USS Destroyer. The weapon looked like a simple energy beam, but when it struck a Zephyrian cruiser, the entire vessel simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart. It was there 1 second and gone the next, leaving only empty space. Direct hit on. "Enemy cruiser 77 Alpha," reported Commander Amy Foster from her position. "Target has been deleted." The word sent chills through both fleets. The humans weren't just destroying Zephyrian ships, they were removing them from reality, completely. Admiral Vex stared at his tactical display as more ships vanished under human fire. "Your Highness, we need to retreat immediately. We're facing weapons technology that's beyond our understanding." "Retreat?" Prince Zerthan's voice cracked with disbelief. "I have 10,000 ships." "You had 10,000 ships," Admiral Vex corrected. "We've lost 300 vessels in the past 5 minutes, and we haven't even scratched their hulls." The human fleet pressed their attack with surgical precision. Each shot was carefully aimed, each target specifically chosen. Captain Sam Torres, commanding the massive dreadnought USS Retribution, focused on the largest Zephyrian battleships. "Fire main battery," he ordered. The Retribution's primary weapon was something new, a gravity lance that could tear apart the molecular structure of anything it touched. When it struck a Zephyrian super dreadnought, the massive ship folded in on itself and disappeared into a microscopic black hole. Ryan Blake, now Admiral Blake, led the Marine assault ships. His job was to capture enemy vessels intact when possible. The Marines used transport technology that let them appear directly inside enemy ships, bypassing all defenses. "Boarding Party Alpha, this is Admiral Blake," he announced over the comm system. "Remember, we want prisoners and intelligence. Disable, but don't destroy." The Marine boarding actions were even more shocking than the space battle. Zephyrian soldiers found themselves facing humans in armor that made them faster, stronger, and tougher than any known species. The Marines moved through enemy ships like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. On the Zephyrian command ship, chaos was spreading. Prince Zerthan watched his mighty fleet get torn apart by a human force that was a fraction of its size. Every tactical advantage he thought he had was proving useless. "How is this possible?" he screamed at his advisors. "Humans are supposed to be weak." General Kyloth had been studying the human fleet through long-range sensors. What he saw made his blood run cold. "Your Highness, I don't think these are the same humans we've been watching. These ships, they're using technology that shouldn't exist." "What do you mean?" "I mean they're violating the fundamental laws of physics," General Kyloth said. "Their ships are moving faster than light while remaining in normal space. Their weapons are manipulating quantum mechanics. Their defenses are based on dimensional manipulation. The battle was becoming a rout. Human ships darted between Zephyrian vessels like sharks among minnows. Every human shot found its target, while Zephyrian weapons couldn't even reach their enemies." Captain Elena Rodriguez pursued a group of fleeing Zephyrian destroyers. Her ship, the USS Lightning, could move so fast that it appeared to be in multiple places at once. When she fired, the enemy ships didn't even have time to detect the attack before they were gone. But the most terrifying part of the battle was the coordination. The human fleet moved like a single organism, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. They communicated through quantum entanglement, making their response time essentially instantaneous. Dr. Kate Williams, monitoring the battle from the medical ship USS Mercy, watched as human Marines began bringing in Zephyrian prisoners. She was amazed by how few casualties there were on both sides. The humans were being careful to disable rather than kill when possible. "Admiral Grant," she reported, "we're receiving wounded from both sides. The human forces are showing remarkable restraint." "That's intentional," Admiral Grant replied. "We want the galaxy to understand that we're not monsters. We're just very, very good at warfare." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Zephyrian fleet had lost over half its ships, while the humans hadn't lost a single vessel. Prince Zerthan's mighty armada was in full retreat, leaving behind wreckage and thousands of prisoners. But more importantly, the battle had been broadcast live across the galaxy. Every civilized species had watched as humanity demonstrated military capabilities that seemed impossible. Elder Vorthak watched the battle footage in his crystal garden, his body glowing with complex patterns of light. He was remembering stories from 3,000 years ago when the Void Hunters had disappeared overnight. Now he understood what had really happened to them. Ambassador Patricia Stone received calls from dozens of species asking the same question. How long have humans been hiding this technology? Her answer was always the same. We haven't been hiding anything. We've simply been developing in peace. This is what happens when you leave humans alone to think and build. Prince Zerthan's surviving fleet limped back toward Zephyrian space, but they weren't safe even there. Human stealth ships were already operating deep behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence and preparing for the next phase of the war. Colonel Marcus Stone led special operations teams that could appear anywhere in Zephyrian space without warning. Their job was to disable enemy military installations and free prisoners from other species. The galaxy was beginning to understand that the ancient warnings had been true. Humans were dangerous when provoked, but they were also just and merciful, fighting only to defend themselves and protect the innocent. The war was far from over, but already it was clear who would win. The only question was whether Prince Zerthan would surrender before his entire civilization was destroyed. As the human fleet regrouped and prepared for the next battle, Admiral Grant sent a message to Earth Command. Phase 1 complete. The galaxy now knows what happens when you break the oldest rule. Proceeding to Phase 2. The real demonstration of human power was just beginning. Prince Zerthan's empire was crumbling from within. After the devastating defeat at Proxima Station, his subject worlds began to question his leadership. Some declared independence, others simply stopped answering his communications. The mighty Zephyrian Empire was falling apart like a house made of cards. In his throne room on the capital world, Prince Zerthan raged at his remaining advisors. General Kyloth stood nearby, his face grim with the knowledge that their situation was hopeless. "Your Highness," General Kyloth said carefully, "perhaps it's time to consider surrender. The humans have proven they're far superior to us militarily." "Never!" Prince Zerthan screamed, his face turning purple with rage. "I am the rightful ruler of this empire. I will not bow to a species of primitives." "But, sir, we've lost 70% of our fleet. Our colonies are in revolt. Even our own military commanders are questioning your orders." Prince Zerthan's eyes blazed with desperate fury. "Then we'll make them pay a price they can't accept. Order all remaining ships to target civilian populations. If I can't rule the galaxy, I'll make sure the humans regret ever crossing me." General Kyloth felt sick to his stomach. "Sir, that would be a war crime. Attacking civilians violates every law of civilized warfare." "I don't care about laws," the prince shouted. "I care about winning." It was the worst decision Prince Zerthan could have made. When his remaining fleet began attacking civilian colonies belonging to species that had allied with humanity, they crossed a line that changed everything. Captain Jake Morrison was patrolling the border regions when the distress call came in. A peaceful agricultural world called Haven Prime was under attack by Zephyrian forces. The planet was home to 1 million farmers and their families with no military defenses. "All speed to Haven Prime," Jake ordered, "and send word to Admiral Grant. The Zephyrians are targeting civilians." The USS Vengeance arrived at Haven Prime to find 3 Zephyrian cruisers bombarding the surface. Cities were burning, and escape pods filled with refugees were fleeing into space. Jake felt a cold rage building in his chest as he watched the slaughter. "Open fire," he said quietly. "No mercy." The Zephyrian ships were destroyed in seconds, but the damage was already done. Hundreds of thousands of innocent people were dead or wounded. Jake led rescue teams to the surface where Dr. Kate Williams set up emergency medical stations. "How many survivors?" Jake asked. Kate looked up from treating a young alien child, tears in her eyes. "Too few. They were targeting schools and hospitals. Specifically." Jake activated his communicator. "Admiral Grant, this is Captain Morrison. The Zephyrians have begun targeting civilian populations. Request permission to escalate to total warfare protocols." Admiral Grant's response came back immediately. "Permission granted. All rules of engagement are now void. Stop holding back." The news of the civilian attacks spread through the human fleet like wildfire. These were soldiers who had been carefully trained to minimize casualties and protect innocents. Watching Zephyrian forces deliberately murder unarmed civilians triggered something primal in the human military. Captain Elena Rodriguez received the new orders while pursuing a Zephyrian battle group. Until now, she had been using non-lethal weapons when possible, trying to capture rather than kill. That changed when she saw footage from Haven Prime. "All ships, this is Captain Rodriguez," she announced over the fleet communications. "The enemy has chosen to target civilians. We will now demonstrate why that was a mistake." Her ship, the USS Lightning, caught up with the fleeing Zephyrian vessels near a gas giant. Instead of using precision weapons to disable them, she activated humanity's most terrible creation, the reality bomb. The weapon didn't just destroy the enemy ships, it erased them and everything around them from existence. A sphere of nothingness expanded from the detonation point, leaving behind empty space where matter used to be. Admiral Ryan Blake's Marine forces received similar orders. They had been conducting surgical strikes against military targets, being careful to avoid civilian casualties. Now they were authorized to use their most devastating weapons. "All Marine units. This is Admiral Blake," he announced. "The enemy has declared war on innocent civilians. We will now show them what human anger looks like when it's properly focused." The Marine assault on the Zephyrian military base at Korath 7th became a legend throughout the galaxy. Human soldiers in power armor that made them nearly invincible stormed through enemy defenses like an unstoppable tide. They moved so fast that security cameras couldn't track them, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. But the most terrifying change was in the space battles themselves. Human ships that had been holding back their true power now unleashed weapons that defied comprehension. Captain Sam Torres, commanding the USS Retribution, activated the ship's planet cracker cannons. "Target the Zephyrian fortress world of Grimhold," he ordered. "Full power." The planet cracker beam struck Grimhold's surface and penetrated to the core. The entire world shuddered, then split apart like a broken egg. But the weapon was so precise that it only destroyed military installations. leaving civilian areas untouched. Prince Zerthan watched the destruction from his capital world. Finally, beginning to understand the magnitude of his mistake. The humans weren't just defeating his forces. They were demonstrating technology that could reshape reality itself. "General Kyloth," he said in a shaking voice, "how is this possible? How do they have such weapons?" General Kyloth had been studying human technology for weeks, trying to understand what they were facing. "Your Highness, I believe they've been preparing for galactic warfare for centuries. Every weapon they're using is based on theories that our scientists thought were purely theoretical." "What do you mean?" "I mean they've weaponized mathematics itself," General Kyloth said. "They're using gravity as a weapon. They're manipulating quantum mechanics to delete matter from existence. They're bending space and time to make their ships appear in multiple places at once." The human advance accelerated dramatically after the civilian attacks. Admiral Grant's fleet moved through Zephyrian space like a scythe through wheat, systematically destroying every military installation they encountered. But they were careful to minimize civilian casualties. Human soldiers would appear in enemy cities, disable all military equipment, and then vanish without harming a single innocent person. The message was clear. Humanity's anger was directed at those who made war, not at ordinary people. Captain Tony Walsh led a squadron that captured the Zephyrian research facility where they had been developing new weapons. What they found there made even hardened human soldiers sick. Laboratories where prisoners from various species had been used for medical experiments. "Admiral Grant," Captain Walsh reported, "you need to see this. The Zephyrians have been conducting experiments on sentient beings. The conditions here are beyond description." Admiral Grant arrived at the facility within hours. She walked through the laboratories in silence, her face growing harder with each atrocity she witnessed. When she emerged, her orders were simple. "Destroy it all," she said, "and make sure every species in the galaxy sees what we found here." The revelation of Zephyrian war crimes turned the last of Prince Zerthan's allies against him. Species that had remained neutral now actively supported the human war effort. The prince found himself completely isolated, ruling over a shrinking territory while human forces closed in from all sides. Meanwhile, human special operations teams were conducting the most audacious mission in galactic history. Colonel Marcus Stone led a force that penetrated deep into Zephyrian space, heading for the capital world itself. Their job was to capture Prince Zerthan and his war council for trial before the Galactic Court. But first, they had to get past the heaviest defenses in the Empire. "All teams, this is Colonel Stone," he announced as his forces approached the capital. "Remember, we want them alive. The galaxy needs to see justice done properly." The assault on the Zephyrian capital began with something the defenders had never seen before. Human ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The defensive fleet found itself fighting enemies that could attack from angles that didn't exist in normal space. Prince Zerthan watched from his palace as his last defenses crumbled. Human marines were already landing in the capital city, moving through his forces like they weren't even there. "It's over," General Kyloth said quietly. "We have to surrender." Prince Zerthan looked at his general with wild eyes. "Never. I'd rather die than surrender to humans." "Then you'll die," said a new voice from the doorway. Prince Zerthan spun around to see a human marine in advanced armor standing in his throne room. The soldier had somehow bypassed every security system in the palace without triggering a single alarm. "I am Colonel Marcus Stone of the Human Marine Corps. the soldier said calmly. Prince Zerthan, you are under arrest for war crimes against civilian populations. Prince Zerthan reached for a weapon, but found himself frozen in place by some kind of stasis field. He could only watch as more human soldiers appeared in his throne room, surrounding him completely. General Kyloth, Colonel Stone said, you have the option to surrender and cooperate with war crimes tribunals. Your fate will depend on your level of cooperation. General Kyloth looked at his prince, then at the human soldiers who had. The Great Hall of the Galactic Court had never seen anything like this trial. Prince Zerthan sat in the defendant's chair, surrounded by energy fields that prevented any escape attempt. His once proud empire lay in ruins, and representatives from 100 different species had come to witness justice being served. Elder Vorthak served as the chief judge, his crystal body glowing with the gravity of the moment. To his left and right sat judges from the most respected species in the galaxy. They had all seen the evidence of Zephyrian war crimes, and their faces showed the disgust they felt. Prince Zerthan of the former Zephyrian Empire, Elder Vorthak announced, you stand accused of war crimes against civilian populations, slavery, torture, and unprovoked aggression against peaceful species. How do you plead? Prince Zerthan lifted his head defiantly. Even in defeat, his arrogance remained. I am a sovereign ruler. This court has no authority over me. Your sovereignty ended when you chose to attack innocent civilians, replied Judge Morian of the Aquatic Federation. You forfeited any claim to legitimate government. General Kyloth took the witness stand next. He had spent weeks in human custody, being treated better than many prisoners in his own empire had been. The contrast had opened his eyes to how far his people had fallen. General Kyloth, said the prosecutor, a tall woman from the crystalline hegemony, please tell the court about the orders Prince Zerthan gave regarding civilian targets. Kyloth looked directly at his former leader. The prince ordered all remaining fleet units to target civilian populations. When I protested that this violated all laws of warfare, he said he didn't care about laws. And what was his stated reason for these orders? He said that if he couldn't rule the galaxy, he would make sure humanity regretted ever crossing him. A murmur of disgust rippled through the courtroom. Even species that had conflicts with humanity were appalled by the deliberate targeting of innocents. President William Carter sat in the observers section, watching the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. Beside him, Admiral Susan Grant took notes that would become part of human military doctrine for centuries to come. Mr. President, Admiral Grant whispered, the galaxy will never see us the same way again. I know, President Carter replied. The question is whether that's good or bad for galactic peace. The trial continued for 3 days. Witness after witness testified about Zephyrian atrocities. Survivors of the prison camps told their stories. Video evidence showed the deliberate targeting of schools and hospitals. The case against Prince Zerthan was overwhelming, but the most powerful testimony came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kate Williams took the stand to describe what she had seen in the Zephyrian research facilities. Your Honors, she said, her voice steady despite the horror of her memories. What I witnessed there was systematic torture disguised as medical research. Sentient beings were subjected to experiments that served no scientific purpose except to cause suffering. She paused, looking directly at Prince Zerthan. The prince's forces didn't just break the laws of warfare. They violated the basic principles of civilized behavior. When the testimony ended, the judges deliberated for only 2 hours. Elder Vorthak returned with a verdict that surprised no one. Prince Zerthan, this court finds you guilty on all charges. You are sentenced to life imprisonment on the prison world of Rura Penthi, where you will have time to contemplate the consequences of your actions." Prince Zerthan was led away, still shouting about his innocence and his royal rights. But no one was listening anymore. His empire was gone, his fleet destroyed, and his people were already choosing new leaders who understood the importance of peaceful coexistence. After the trial, President Carter addressed the Galactic Council one final time. He stood at the same podium where he had issued his ultimatum weeks ago, but now the galaxy looked at humanity with very different eyes. "Fellow beings," he began, "the war with the Zephyrian Empire is over. Justice has been served, and the galaxy is safe from their aggression." He paused, looking around the chamber at representatives from hundreds of species. Some watched him with respect, others with fear, and a few with something approaching awe. "I want to be clear about something," President Carter continued. "Humanity never wanted this war. We have spent decades trying to be good neighbors and peaceful traders. We revealed our true capabilities only because we were forced to defend ourselves and protect innocent civilians." Elder Vorthak stood up, his crystal body ringing like a bell. "President Carter, the Council recognizes that humanity acted with restraint and honor throughout this conflict. You could have destroyed the Zephyrian Empire completely, but instead you chose to minimize casualties and seek justice through proper legal channels. That's who we are," President Carter replied. "We are dangerous when provoked, yes, but we are also just and merciful. We will always defend the innocent and punish those who prey on the weak." Ambassador Patricia Stone smiled from her seat in the diplomatic section. For 20 years, she had worked to build relationships with other species. Now those relationships were stronger than ever, built on respect rather than just politeness. Captain Jake Morrison returned to his original mission of exploration and diplomacy, but now he carried the weight of galactic respect. His new ship, the USS Vengeance, was a symbol of human power tempered by human wisdom. "Captain," Lisa Parks said from her engineering station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Centauri Research Station. They're requesting our assistance with a scientific project." Jake smiled. It felt good to be helping rather than fighting. "Set course for Centauri. Let's see what we can do to help." But not all of humanity's fleet returned to peaceful duties. Admiral Ryan Blake established the Galactic Peace Corps, a joint human-alien military force dedicated to preventing future conflicts. Their ships patrolled trade routes and responded to distress calls throughout the galaxy. Dr. Kate Williams founded the Galactic Medical Corps, working to improve health care for all species. Her teams included the best doctors and researchers from dozens of worlds, united in the goal of healing rather than harming. The changes went deeper than just military and medical cooperation. Human technology began appearing throughout the galaxy, but it was shared freely rather than used as a weapon. Quantum shields protected colony worlds from natural disasters. Dimensional engines made interstellar travel faster and safer. Gravity manipulators helped terraform hostile worlds. Elder Vorthak updated the ancient warnings in the galactic archives. The new inscription read, "Humanity, dangerous when provoked, but just in their anger and merciful in their victory. They defend the innocent and punish the guilty. They seek peace but are prepared for war. They are the galaxy's guardians, whether the galaxy wants them or not." 5 years after the war ended, a new species called the Corvani made contact with the galactic community. They were aggressive and warlike, convinced that might made right. Their first action was to attack a peaceful trading station on the edge of human space. The attack lasted exactly 17 minutes. Human response ships appeared as if from nowhere, disabled the Corvani vessels without destroying them, and captured the entire raiding force alive. The Corvani commander was brought before Admiral Grant, who had been promoted to head of Galactic Defense Command. She looked at him with the same calm expression she had worn throughout the Zephyrian War. "Commander Jackson," she said, "I'm going to give you some advice. There's an old rule in this galaxy that you should never mess with humans. I suggest you learn that rule quickly." "And if we don't?" the Corvani commander asked defiantly. Admiral Grant gestured to a screen showing footage from the Zephyrian War. "Then you'll join Prince Zerthan in prison and your people will learn why that rule exists." The Corvani commander watched the footage of human ships deleting entire enemy fleets from existence. He saw the planet cracker weapons and the dimensional shields. He witnessed the precision and coordination that had made humanity's military unstoppable. "I understand," he said quietly. "My people will reconsider our approach to galactic relations." "Good," Admiral Grant said, "because the galaxy has room for everyone who wants to live in peace. But it has no room for those who choose to prey on the innocent." The Corvani became one of humanity's closest allies within a decade. They learned that humans were willing to share their technology and knowledge with anyone who chose cooperation over conquest. Years passed, and the galaxy settled into a new age of peace. Trade flourished between species that had once been enemies. Scientific research advanced faster than ever before as the best minds from hundreds of worlds worked together. Art and culture flowed freely across the stars. But everyone remembered the lesson of the Zephyrian War. In museums throughout the galaxy, displays showed what happened when someone broke the oldest rule. Children from dozens of species learned the story of how humanity's patience and mercy were balanced by their terrible capability for warfare. Captain Jake Morrison, now an admiral himself, often visited those museums. He would stand before the display showing his old ship, the USS Liberty, and remember how the war had started with one act of unprovoked aggression. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Lisa Park asked him during one of these visits. She was now Earth's chief of technological development, working to improve life for all species. Jake looked at the children of many different